In study support, we increasingly see students with a diagnosis of Autistic Spectrum Condition, or ASC. Some students are known to us before they start at college, and others are referred to us for additional support as the academic year progresses. Some students have never been assessed and formally diagnosed, or may just have a few autistic traits. We have created this video to help give an understanding of autism and help give some strategies when working with these students. It is important to understand what is meant by the term spectrum. Sometimes when people think of this, they think of it being linear, with people being a little bit autistic to very autistic. However, this is a common misconception and something we really want to avoid. In reality, it can look more like the picture on the right-hand side, where different people have stronger and weaker areas of brain processes. Each person with autism will have a set of traits all in different areas of the spectrum. The trouble with labeling someone only a bit autistic is that you can cause a problem like this. Then when the person struggles to cope, you might think you need to relabel them as being on the other side of the spectrum, which can then have its own set of difficulties. This person might then be labelled as being incapable of doing anything at all. The truth is, though, someone who is neurodiverse in some areas of their brain will also be no different to a neurotypical person in other areas of their brain. One autistic person might be very happy in a loud crowd, but find conversation hard in general. An autistic person is not a problem to be solved. Rather, they are an individual that needs to be understood. If we can get to grips with this and make reasonable adjustments, that student could thrive in your class and here at college. A student with ASC can present in many different ways. They can come across as very shy, quiet, submissive, and compliant, or they can present as bossy, resistant, lacking empathy, lashing out and not caring about hurting others. Girls can be very skilled at masking and camouflaging and have learnt by copying social behaviours of others to fit in and avoid being bullied. This graph shows us what happens to our ability to communicate and process information when our anxiety levels are increasing and we find ourselves in a heightened state. This is the case with most humans. Think of a time when you have been exceptionally stressed. Were you able to accurately communicate? Were you able to take in your surroundings and tell someone what you needed? The answer is likely no. This brings us to the fizzy pop analogy. It is helpful to think of a bottle of fizzy pop and imagine that it is our autistic student. What someone might consider as a minor setback in their day can be a really difficult obstacle for an autistic person. Perhaps, for instance, that student had difficulty getting ready in the morning because there was no hot water at home. Imagine our bottle of Coke being shaken up slightly. Then there was no cereal left and they had to find something else to eat. The Coke is shaken some more. Moving on, that student had a tough time on the bus because it was very busy and there was nowhere to sit. The bottle shakes again. Then when walking into their classroom, the teacher tells them they're 5 minutes late. At this point, the lid bursts off the bottle and explodes everywhere. Imagine that moment is a student having a meltdown. Perhaps they cry, perhaps they storm out, perhaps they get rude or aggressive. To the teacher, it seems like a totally dramatic response to the simple comment that the student was late. But if you account for the difficult morning the student has had leading up to that point, you can understand how this affects that student. This analogy can really be used when considering any student, as everyone comes to college with their own baggage. Sometimes students have social or generalized anxiety and can often feel overwhelmed. They should know who and where they can go in different situations. For instance, when feeling overwhelmed and sad, they should contact their counsellor, college nurse or tutor, or if they need help with assignments, their class teacher or someone from study support. In class, it will help if teachers can balance expectations with flexibility. You can ask students what would help to reduce their stress levels and remind them to use any strategies that they have successfully used in the past. For those who don't already have any useful strategies, try to provide some different options. For example, listening to music, taking a break and enjoying solitude, taking a walk, drawing, or some kind of sensory activity. Consider what you can do to help the student feel more calm. So possibly alter your tone of voice, appropriately adapt your expectations, change your body language or your actions. Give some time and space for them to recover their equilibrium following a difficult situation. For example, after giving the student feedback on a poor test result. Wait until the person feels ready to communicate and limit or simplify your language so that you do not overload them. If students are totally overwhelmed, it will often help to consider dropping a subject to enable them to cope with their other subjects. The ideal environment in which students with autism are able to learn would be somewhere that they feel safe and comfortable, relaxed, accepted, and they can blend in and be part of everything. It's important to avoid sensory overload such as noise or distractions. Some students are even sensitive to smells such as whiteboard pens. You may need to let the student sit next to a window in order to regulate temperature, or a door so there is an easy way to slip out if they need to. It may mean allowing them to choose who they feel safe to sit next to. It may also help to allow a student to arrive and leave class early to avoid busy corridors, which can result in feelings of anxiety. Organisation skills are often a problem for ASC students. Students should be encouraged to use a diary or calendar to record deadlines for assignments. Communication differences should be acknowledged. For example, don't assume a student with ASC will automatically check their emails. Unless explicitly instructed to do so in each lesson, this may not become a regular everyday activity. Allow students to use assistive technology like read-write, take photos of slides or the board, and provide electronic copies of resources. Many students on the spectrum will struggle with change, so if possible, inform students of changes in timetable, change of classroom, and teacher absence beforehand. Communication with ASC students is often challenging as they can find it difficult to read between the lines. So please ensure that instructions are clear. Try to avoid contradictions and try chunking information and pausing and pacing the information delivery to allow the student sufficient processing time. It may help if instructions are given in a range of ways and you can repeat instructions more than once. These students frequently need reassurance that they're doing the right thing. Students on the autistic spectrum often have pronounced visual strength, so they often respond well to pictures, diagrams, and written instructions, but struggle with verbal delivery. Try to avoid unclear language and concepts. For example, saying that you will do something later